Yo, what is up, YouTube? It's your boy Armand back again for E equals MCU, and we are going to get into the LoKi episode 1 review. The episode is called Glorious Purpose, and we're going to go through and break down some of the things I caught, Easter eggs, and just overall feelings about the show. So, without further ado, I am burdened with glorious purpose, and I am going to review LoKi. Now, going into this, it starts off, it literally picks up right where Avengers Endgame left off. I noticed some of the scenes were a little different, and what they did is you could tell they pieced it. There was some footage that was exactly from Endgame, and then like there was like a close-up of LoKi making the face at the Hulk in the elevator that wasn't originally there. And also I picked up that when he imitated Captain America and securing the breach or whatever Captain America was talking about, the way he did it in Endgame, it was from a different camera angle, it was different, so it leads me to believe they did pickup shots, and he did it again, and it was even funnier the way he did it this time. So just that's, a little quick thing about the intro, so it picks right up so we know where we're going into the story. The opening scene was, I would call thick is the word that I would use. There was a lot of Easter eggs. They're setting up the TVA, and you're at the TVA, so you get a lot of Easter eggs. I'm gonna just call this off right off the bat. The timekeepers of the TVA, I believe, is the Council of Kings. And I know that's a theory that's been going around, and you can kind of tell, but in the courtroom scene, when they show the pictures of the timekeepers, they actually look like Kang. Like if you really look at Kang the Conqueror and what he looks like, and you look at the pictures, I mean, they all look like they're different versions of Kang. So to me, that's kind of out in the front. But what's really funny about that opening scene, there's a couple of things actually. I'll go through them. The first one, of course, when they put him in the chamber or whatever, and a little computer thing is looking at him, which kind of reminded me of the Spider-Verse Penny Parker machine. Anybody else catch that? But it's kind of funny. He was talking about how this is fine Asgardian leather, and it burns it off, and you see his reaction to it. I thought that was funny. Then the part where he's going through the machine and he's asking him if he's the machine, and it's just like, he raised a good question. He was like, if I was a machine, as far as I know, I'm not, but if I was and I don't know, what would happen? And the guy says it'll melt you from the inside out. So he went through the machine kind of reluctantly. I thought that was funny. And one thing to pick up on that scene is that the temporal aura that they're reading off of him, I believe, is going to match the temporal aura that they have for and I'm gonna get to this later, but when Mobius says to run the temporal aura and the guy says you're not gonna find anything, he says just run it anyway, and let's see what it comes up with. So I think that's Easter egg for something to be revealed later. And then of course the end where he has to take a ticket, and he's just like, it ain't but two people in here, and you got the other guy arguing about not having a ticket somehow, and then the guy burns him or whatever they call it. There's a word for it, like resets him. And what happens to a person when they get reset? Because when they reset the timeline, it's kind of implied that there's a different version of them that's put in there for them to fill out that timeline. So then they essentially have nowhere to go, which comes back later when LoKi wants to go back, and he realizes that he can't go back to his timeline. So it'd be interesting to see how that part ends and how we all end up with that. And then of course the cartoon talking about the Easter eggs in the sacred timeline. I think it's all lies. I think it's lies, because I think King the Conqueror is behind all of this. So I believe that it's all propaganda and it's all lies. The cartoon kind of implied that a secret wars had already happened in the universe. And we know that Secret Wars is probably coming down the line. I think all of this is starting to set that up. And, you know, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania will probably pick up and kind of tell King's story and explain. That's where he'll probably be. And I just noticed too in the intro scene, there was a squirrel that was at the TVA. That's funny. You know, that they're going for Secret Wars. That's going to happen. So that cartoon, I don't believe was true. Now, one thing the cartoon did say, and I don't know if anybody else caught the WandaVision Easter egg, is the Nexus. You know, when somebody branches off on a timeline, they create a Nexus. Now, the question is, why didn't WandaVision and the situations that happened in WandaVision cause concern for Doctor Strange to pop up, which we know he should have, and then B, the TVA to pop up, because, you know, maybe she didn't go off. They're kind of covering themselves, saying that maybe she didn't stray off the path that she was supposed to do, and that's the reason why they didn't come, just like with the Avengers. But when they say that she's a Nexus being, and, you know, they talk about the Nexus event, and that happens, I believe that those are, I mean, of course, they're connected. I think that's going to come back up in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. It's going to have a bigger meaning. So, you know, maybe she was unchecked or not unchecked. We don't know. We'll have to find out. A couple things to kind of notice too. The intro scene from Mobius I thought was interesting, because the way that, first of all, the director and the direction of the show, the cinematography is really good. There's a lot of meaning, and I noticed that with Mobius opening scene, they had the light coming through the I think it was like a cathedral or like a stained glass, and it had like a divineness to it as he's standing in front of it, like the way that was shot. After watching the episode a couple times, I believe that is a sign that Mobius is much like LoKi, a double agent, in the sense that he said a few things that kind of hinted off that, you know, he was there, but he wasn't necessarily like a TVA, you know, he's a TVA member, but like, you got to wonder, how do the people get into the TVA? And it could be that they're all people who've had problems like LoKi, where they got out of the timeline and then they stayed and worked for the TVA. But if you listen to what he says in some of his interactions with LoKi about his experience, and that's been his experience dealing with the TVA, is that they're very formidable. Things like that will lead you to believe that he's probably trying to get out of this himself. Because I believe even in the elevator, he says, time works different down here. And he says, well, how long have you been here? And, you know, he kind of, you know, gives a hint that maybe he's trying to get out, and maybe he's going to use LoKi to get out. So we'll have to keep an eye on that as well. So you see kind of what's going on, and how the person who the variant they're looking for stole the reset mechanism that they use. So that kind of sets it up where we're going here. Then Mobius gets word about LoKi being captured, and he goes back to try to, you know, basically rescue him from his court date. And like I said, in the background, you see the Council of Kings, or excuse me, the Timekeepers. And that scene was very interesting, just from the standpoint of, it was kind of funny how LoKi was trying to blame it all on the Avengers, and she was like, no, this is, you know, you gotta take responsibility for this. This is your part going off the path. And at that point, he raises the question, well, according to who? You know what I mean? Like, who has control over what I'm supposed to be doing and what I'm not? So I thought that was interesting. And then it gets interesting with Mobius and LoKi's interaction. There's a lot of banter between the two of them that I think has a lot deeper meanings. You know, he takes him to the room where he's going to basically interrogate him. And the one thing I like about Mobius' character and how he's written, because at first I wasn't sure about the casting for him, but honestly it's a perfect casting, because he has that calm demeanor, He has the comedy background, so it's like he can banter with LoKi, but at the same time, there's a edge to Mobius in the way he's written. Like, if you notice, he'll insult LoKi underhandedly and then give him a compliment, and then insulting even deeper. Like, even with his insults, he was cutting deep, especially when he was talking about his mom. He didn't stop pushing, so there's a fierceness in him that I think you have to respect in how his character is written. I think it's going to do very well for gosh, why is his name escaping me right now? But for the actor that plays Mobius, it's going to do very well for his career, because it's perfectly written for him. It's a perfect character, so he gets to show off his chops. But yes, he's in the room, and it's basically you're going back over the history events of LoKi and everything, and then he has to come to terms with the fact that he watches himself die. Which, by the way, there was an Easter egg on the tape that was rolling. It said 616/615, so I'm guessing that's the universes as the main timeline that we watch as an MCU. I think it's now the 616 universe, which has been retconned from 1990, 1999 that they had in the comics. Now that Kevin Feige's in charge of everything, he's just gonna make the MCU 616 universe. Excuse me there. But yeah, I thought that him seeing his own death was very humbling. So then he goes to Mobius, and basically, Mobius broke him with everything, and he basically confesses what his whole issue is, and it actually makes sense with this character throughout the whole arc. He's basically insecure as into who he is, and that's why he does things like at the beginning scene, he goes and stands up on a rock in front of the Mongolians as to say that he's better than, or he wants to be superior. He wants to rule so bad. And I think it's kind of a metaphor for a lot of people in the real world like that, that hide their insecurities and lash out the way that LoKi lashes out at people. So he tried to explain that, he doesn't enjoy it, even though it looks like he enjoys it, but he says he doesn't enjoy it. It's his go-to mechanism for coping, and a lot of people are like that. So they hit a heartstring there, I think, definitely. Other things from the show, not to get into this too long, the fight scene, first of all, the TVA agent, what is it, U-15, I believe it is, or U-15, she's hilarious. The fight scenes, like, she just wants to put the hurt on him so badly. That whole fight scene that they get into, and then when they got the time, he puts the thing around her neck and they're popping back and forth. I think it was very important because it showed you the rules, but it was good. It was also good character development, I think, too, for just like her no nonsense, just like for LoKi. So I thought that was hilarious. Other things to mention about the show, I don't want to make sure I don't miss or forget anything that may be important. The use of the Infinity Stones, I think that's going to be a big question as to why the Infinity Stones are just stones within the time variant. And I think the reason why is because they're tied to whatever universe they come from. And technically, the TVA is not in any universe because it exists outside of, not necessarily time, because they said time moves differently, but it does exist outside of any universe. Therefore, the stones are rendered useless. Once LoKi realizes that, I think that's what triggered him to want, because he's so driven by power. I think it just opened his eyes, and it's gonna make him make different decisions now going forward. So that's a fun Easter egg, and I thought the character he interacted with, that he wanted to gut like a fish, he didn't know what a fish was, which I don't know why he doesn't know what a fish is, because they still exist within the universe. But I think that's funny that he wanted to. He said they use them for like paperweights and stuff. So overall, I think you see the character setup, the character development, what they got coming for the show. There's 6 episodes. So you got 6 more weeks, or 5 more weeks, excuse me, and really just to end this all up, and that we know where this is going. There's gonna be multiple versions of Loki. The end scene of the episode shows the variant burning the TVA agents and doing what they do, and I do believe that is Lady Loki. And that's when they're going to find out about the temporal aura and everything when they get that information back, that is Lady Loki. And I think there's supposed to be like a kid version of Loki as well. So I mean, I think that's what's going on. It's definitely going to set up some of the rules for Ant-Man and the Wasp and for Doctor Strange too. And overall, you know, it was a good episode, good setup episode. For people who don't like, because you got to understand, Michael Walden, I think is the name of the guy who writes the show, and he wrote for Rick and Morty. He's going to be writing the new Star Wars for Kevin Feige, and he also worked on Doctor Strange 2 and wrote that. There's a lot of dialogue in this, and a lot of people, oh, it's boring, the dialogue, blah, 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 blah. This is like good dialogue, because this is very in-depth. It's world-building kind of dialogue that's very needed. And if this is what we have to look forward to in the show, I think the show is going to go down great, and hopefully it fulfills the itch that a lot of people have been wanting and missing from the other MCU TV shows. So, but with that, that's kind of my overall thought on it right now. Good job, just all the way around. I'm excited. I can't wait for the next episode. Let me know down in the comments section how you feel about Loki. If you liked it, if you don't like it, what problems you have with it. And yeah, man, I'll see you guys next week on this. Like, share, and subscribe. I'm out.